Now, you're an accredited journalist in Congress. I have to make it clear that I'm not a journalist. I'm accredited. There's an obsession with degrees here, and you need 5 years of study just to ask a question. I sincerely mean what I'm saying. I'm not exaggerating, embellishing, or performing for a podcast or clip. No, for example, I saw the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party's communication secretary giving guidelines on what to say and avoid with those media outlets. It's not about the blackout. Look, we still can't say anything, we don't know anything. An extreme right-wing extremist disrupted the press conference. Real journalists trying to work had to leave. Is Spain's most read book Belén Esteban's biography? What are Spain's most watched shows? Gossip, celebrity news, tabloid press. Do you really think they're ready to stop voting? But to discuss and debate hot current topics. Alan Barroso, you earn over 3,000 euros for 2 3-minute reels, totaling more than 60,000 euros an hour in public funds. There are a number of people who just for show want to make you believe that they want to put an end to the problem of sexist murders, but you have to understand that they make a living off those sexist murders.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of LA Factoria. This episode is with my best friend, with my buddy, with my bro. Rescue you, everyone. We have a long history of collaborating and doing live streams together. A long history of certain rumors going around about his strange preferences. But I owe him a little prank, don't I? Rescue prank, how's it going, brother? Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Rescue. We have a lot of things to talk about, yes.
A lot.
Not anymore. You are exclusively a YouTuber who does street interviews to raise awareness about the general mindset of the masses. You're now a credentialed journalist in Congress. How long have you been there? Who reaches out to you? How do you gain access? Tell us a bit about the whole story that led you to Bueno. Damn, you are doing a job that so many journalists
would love. Yeah, right? I'm not a journalist, even though I'm accredited. I started making YouTube videos like many others, and for some reason they succeeded, but I'm not a journalist. That's another thing. There's an obsession with degrees here, and I think it's stupid that you have to study for 5 years just to ask a question. I wish those who protest saying he's not a journalist would just file a lawsuit. Similarly, what about the fact that the Ministry of Health has the best, a healthcare worker or the most qualified doctor? And there's no philosopher like the one recently in the Ministry of Health during the pandemic, for example. It seems like a double standard I wanted to highlight today. But anyway, having said that and answering your question, how did it all start? Well, I went to do a podcast interview, talking about my experiences and all that, to EDA-TV, more specifically Informa Radio, which is the radio branch. And well, at that moment it came up, they asked me about it, they suggested it. And it's true, they had already sounded me out. They asked me about it a few months ago, but I didn't feel ready since I wanted to do more on YouTube. Topics like illegal immigration, certain interviews, certain social experiments. I wanted to explore some ideas further, but that was 3 weeks ago. I've been going to the Congress of Deputies every Tuesday for the past 3 weeks, to the press conferences since I got accredited by Informa Radio. And well, since then, at the same time, without leaving my work on YouTube and all that, I go to the press conferences every Tuesday at the Congress of Deputies.
Well, it's quite curious, because I'm watching the politicians' reactions. To you, to Vito, to Bertrand and Dongo. Describe what it's like inside with all that circus
that you see from the outside. Look, I'm going to be as honest as possible. On the first day, I was super excited. You even called to tell me you were so happy. Yeah, it's true. I called you. Are they going to accredit me to Congress? It's significant since I'm starting from scratch. I started making YouTube videos 2 years ago, including interviews, social experiments, and reports. And suddenly I find myself in the Congress of Deputies and all that. I have to confess that the first day I was super excited, the second day I was disgusted. The second day I felt a certain disgust and sadness. What was the situation and how did things operate inside the Congress of Deputies? Why? Because yes, you described it very well. It's a circus, it's a theater, it's a clique. The best way to define the Congress of Deputies, and more specifically the press conference at the Congress of Deputies. It's a clique between politicians and journalists. You can hardly tell them apart. It's a group of friends, a clique. There is no fourth estate, as it used to be called until recently, with private media outlets putting pressure on the executive and legislative branches. That doesn't exist, it's all mixed together. Before, it was like water and oil. That's how it should be. To create a counterbalance, to put pressure on those politicians who owe us explanations in certain situations. Not anymore. Now we have that fourth estate being completely allied with those politicians. Nothing more, nothing less. And I can tell you 1,000 stories in the 3 or 4 days I've been here, pretty much. Yes.
It's just brutal. In fact, I'm going to say a little something
Here.
This show came about because he called me and said, Joda, I'm burned out.
I want to tell what's going on in there. I said, brother.
Well, thank you. Because he's a very good friend of mine, and he could have given this to any other podcast. And he says, no, I want to give it to you since you're my buddy, but...
You won't believe how bad everything smells inside.
So that's it. I'm all ears.
And honestly, I put my hand on my heart for what I'm about to tell you. Yeah, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not embellishing it, and I'm not putting on a show just to set the mood, to make a good podcast, right? I'm going to tell you just like Mira did. For example, I was in the waiting room right next to the chamber. You know the typical scene where politicians exit the chamber and Vito Quiles is interviewing them in the hallway with all the media? Next to it, there's a waiting room where the dinosaurs of the media are. And politicians keep coming and going, entering and leaving all the time. And right away you realize that it smells like a clique. It smells like politicians, friends of the journalists. For example, I'll never forget how the Secretary General of Communication of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party was in the hallway, and there was a group of journalists. And you might say, well, the typical journalists asking questions and putting pressure on that Secretary of Communication, who later became, because of the blackout incident, okay? Well, what I saw was the Secretary of Communication of the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party giving some instructions as if conducting with a baton. Guidance on what to say, and avoid saying to those media outlets, it's not about the blackout. We still can't say or know anything. If the government, there weren't any journalists poking at the wound. There weren't any journalists asking for explanations. There weren't any journalists demanding accountability. There wasn't a fourth estate demanding the truth about certain problems. How was the blackout, given that it has already caused 10 deaths? There was no one asking anything significant to that Secretary General of Communication. He was a communications person who was giving journalists guidelines on what to say and how to say it. Period. And I was there surrounded by 10 journalists and everyone was laughing and joking, having a good time. There was gossip and favoritism. And I was the only idiot who spoke up. Recording in the hallway is forbidden. Only one Congress camera is allowed, and it only turns on occasionally. Recording is strictly forbidden, whether with your phone or a voice recorder. And at that moment, I asked him a question that I honestly find amazing that no one has asked before. Among journalists with 20 or 30 years in the profession, I asked him, yes, well, but Red Electrica has as its president a lady who earns €500,000 a year, a bit more, who was appointed directly by the government. Without any kind of democracy, without any kind of voting, nothing, absolutely nothing. Shouldn't this person have some kind of responsibility? Since there was a blackout before, there was already a precedent. Repsol had to shut down, had to turn off an entire refinery. There were critical problems days before the blackout. Someone didn't do their job.
There were reports, and I think there are reports from a month earlier, saying that this
could happen. Exactly, I was asking you about that. And with the news in hand. Hey, the world has said this and that because the world agreed. Previous documents on the power grid warned of critical problems and potential failure. So I asked that, he gives me a bad look, gives me the typical non-player character politician answer. It'll be investigated, but are we just leaving it at that, or will we look into it ourselves? The truth is, we're just going to let time pass and let people forget about it. That's it. That's how it is. That's how it is. It's the only strategy. Let the next screw-up cover up the previous one. That's how it is. Politicians practically don't talk about the Dana anymore. For example, the whole Dana issue is almost forgotten. They don't talk about it. They don't debate about the Dana anymore. Not anymore. Reconstruction. And people are still having problems. I mean, there are still people who have been left without a home, etc.
And then there was a vote to exempt those affected by the DANA from paying taxes. And they said, no, you're going to pay. You've lost everything. Thousands gone. Euros on your car. You've been able to. You could have lost your business, your house, or even a family member. But are you still going to be my slave and keep my horse, my little business, my cocaine?
Is simply... The fact is that I asked him that question that any journalist would. I haven't studied journalism, but it's not about studying or not studying journalism. It's whether you have common sense or you don't. There has been a very serious problem that affects the whole country. There have been deaths, and people are demanding, or we need to demand, accountability. That's the minimum to expect from someone making over €500,000 a year, which is outrageous. Well, from that point on, he gave me a dirty look and gave me the typical non-player character politician explanation that we need to let time pass. And then all the journalists gave me a look like they smelled something awful. It was incredible. And more than one of them asked me, because I was anonymous. My advantage was that they didn't know me yet. Bito Quiles is recognized and faces bias, but I started without that, giving me an edge. Well, from that point on, 2 or 3 journalists asked me, which outlet are you from? Who are you? What do you mean, who am I? I have asked a question to a person who holds a public office and who owes us an explanation. You don't have to ask me, you have to ask the politician. I can't understand. I mean, I knew beforehand that journalism was rotten. But until you go down into the sewer and smell the shit, that's unbearable. Are you not aware of how much rot there is in the journalism sector? And even more inside there? There's no fourth estate, as I said. No pressure, no tough questions. Let me tell you a story that'll make you laugh. I'm not going to crack up. I swear on my life, I'm in a really bad mood, because I'm in a really bad mood. Yeah. At first I saw it and I couldn't believe it. I mean, I swear, I'll say it again. I'm not exaggerating. I'm not making it up. I'm not blowing it out of proportion for the clip. I swear. In the break room, they have a plasma television where you can see what's being discussed in the chamber. The usual, right? We've all seen it, the president of the government, then the reply, the chamber, and all that. Well, you can see it on television. There was a journalist, but I don't know who she was. A journalist around 50 years old watching television. And each time, I spent hours waiting for Pedro Sánchez to come out so I could ask him in the hallway, but he never did. A journalist was there, and I stayed for hours. In the break room, a journalist was watching television. Every time Pedro Sánchez appeared, she cheered. Watching television, when Pedro Sánchez came on, she'd say, "Well said, that's right," to herself. So, you saw a lady journalist who was on the couch watching Pedro Sánchez. In the Congress of Deputies, cheering and encouraging Pedro Sánchez from the television. Do you really think that journalists will ask tough questions to any deputy or public official from the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party? No. Obviously not. It's impressive. I have
a question for you. Are you a real bear, or are you just fooling yourself into believing you are? I'm going to tell you an uncomfortable truth. And that is, you are the reflection of the people you surround yourself with. For years, I was stuck in a place that got me nowhere, surrounded by unambitious people waiting for change. But the reality is that things don't change unless you take control of your life and surround yourself with the right people. That's why I created Club Red Pill 3.0, a space for men seeking to be around real warriors. A space where we cover key topics like masculinity, stoicism, relationship dynamics, and where we try to give you the necessary tools to reach your maximum potential, keep improving every day so you can become the man this society so desperately needs. Additionally, when you join, you get access to an exclusive section where you can ask questions to the guests of the factory and learn directly from the leading figures in the industry. Yes, the questions asked in the Congress of Deputies with those issues. We have today in the country, for example, the reform you're going to make, what consequences will it have for the citizens? And it's like, okay, I mean, that's what I'm getting at. I mean, I understand that's a question. Does it make sense if there's no major political scandal? But the thing is, this government, you've said a big truth. Their strategy to make people forget the previous screw-up is to make a new screw-up that's even worse than the last one. The crap just keeps piling up on top of itself. In the end, we end up forgetting Coldo. We end up forgetting Tito Bernie. We forget Jessica Abalos and the pardons because of the masks. We end up forgetting the release of Tara. We end up forgetting all the lies that Pedro Sánchez told during the election campaign. We end up forgetting. I mean, look, and this is just off the top of my head. I'll make a reel listing all the screw-ups they've made since Pedro Sánchez came in 2018. And we're going to be shocked.
This is insane. It's just insane. I mainly wanted to talk about the topic. I mean, how could we not talk about the recent topic? Bertrand Ndongo, a journalist from Es Verdad. Tell us about the scandal. Tell us the scandal that broke out has been shameful. I'm telling you seriously. And it's no surprise to anyone how the media lied about the incident. An alleged extremist outburst at a press conference. It was shameful from the far right. He disrupted the press conference and the poor journalist who only wanted to... But it's literal, I'm not exaggerating. A far-right extremist interrupted the press conference. And the real journalists who just wanted to do their job had to leave the room. They headline it like this, which is a lie from the first to the last word. A lie, because this. The first day I left shocked, and I remember saying to my colleague, man, how can this work like this? This is a joke. I remember I was going to ask Pachi Lopez, okay? The spokesperson for the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. I arrived very early, and before me, Ioni Belara, Podemos spokesperson, was there, okay? Well, so I get there, and in the press room, you have some microphones that you lift up, press a button, and you can talk, okay? The thing is, and I want to point this out, both Sumar and Podemos, they use the same modus operandi. They turn off the microphones in the press room. They turn them off and give out a handheld karaoke microphone and pass it to their friend, journalist. So then what happens? Ione Belara appears and delivers her unbearable speech, repeatedly saying far-right and Francoist fascist. She just keeps going. And now we begin the press conference. What is that press conference like? The press chief is on her right, and the press chief says, She gives the microphone to the journalist friend on duty. And she asks him, what are your thoughts on the new law? The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party next to it, see, such and such, such and such. What do you think about the new documentary La Sexta made, as they asked you recently, regarding immigrants and their importance? Those are really stupid questions. They're commendable, but I think so. Anyone with half a brain knows it's unnecessary. A 4-year degree and a master's in journalism. He needs to ask in-depth current affairs questions, especially about corruption. Reports from the Unidad Central Operativa from the Civil Guard. Because I asked Pachi Lopez about the Unidad Central Operativa, about a Unidad Central Operativa report that linked the Coldo case with Santos Zerdan. He said it's not far-right media, I replied, saying it's not a Unidad Central Operativa report. The Unidad Central Operativa is far-right. I mean, those far-right media outlets that report on this are basing it on a Unidad Central Operativa report. Well, the thing is, it's a circus, especially the press conferences. Why do things get so wild with Bertrand Ndongo? Because they never give you the chance to speak, and this isn't mentioned in the media. They say that they disrupted the press conference. No, it's not about causing disruption. It's just a joke. And they don't give anyone a chance to speak. They only let 1 or 2 journalists speak. They're super close friends. And she leaves, and she leaves, and she leaves because she's very tired. So excuse me? So she left. Bertrand Ndongo wanted to ask her about Monica Oltra, who is involved. She has been charged again once more for a case of covering up sexual abuse by her then partner. Damn, I think that's pretty serious. A person who has been in power, like Monica Oltra, has been a leader in Valencia, in her political party. And she has been, no more and no less, involved in covering up sexual abuse of minors. And this is where I realize that what matters is not the what, but the who. Absolutely, because everyone of a certain age will remember how much trouble the media cost. Speaking of 2 suits of camps in Valencia, I don't know if you remember that, but for example, the girdle case with camps, and I'm not going to defend the PP, not at all, is corruption. But what can happen is that back then you had Jordi Évole, La Sexta, all the media outlets Full front pages over two crappy suits of camps. The president of the Valencian community making a huge fuss. I don't think that's wrong. But then you have Monica Oltra, accused of covering up her then husband's sexual abuse. You can't ask that here, but Bertrand, being a good journalist, insisted, no, excuse me, I want to ask this. Because you never give me a chance to speak, you never give anyone a chance to speak, you only give your 4 friends a chance to speak. Well, not even 4, just 2. I've already run into Belara these past 3 weeks 3 times, and she always does the same thing. She delivers her extreme right Franco-fascist speech for half an hour. At the press conference, a friend hands the mic to the press chief, who then leaves. Is that democratic? These people always talk about democracy and free speech. They're the worst. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, I was at a press conference. I ran into Telado, the spokesperson for the PP. I'm very far removed from the PP's cities. Because Mariano Rajoy had an absolute majority, he did absolutely nothing.
Nothing? He failed to deliver?
On his entire electoral program. Completely.
For me, the worst thing about Rajoy is that he gave up the cultural narrative to the left. Exactly. Go on.
And that man answered La Sexta, answered the newspaper, answered everyone. He was absolutely correct. It's already a shame and a sadness that I have to praise what should be obvious, what should be. It's like applauding a person.
A Spaniard because they shower 3 times daily. Can eat 3 times a...
Yes, sorry.
It's like applauding a Spaniard
who respects the driving rules.
It's like saying, hey, look at this person, how good he is, that he doesn't 250 per hour for 6 hours. Let's give him a round of applause.
Yes, exactly. It's ridiculous. Well, that man answered everyone and didn't leave until no journalist had their hand raised. He answered everyone. I'm also far from the People's Party, just like you. This isn't about ideologies, it's about ethics and morality. You're being paid, and not a small amount, in a public office representing many people with favors and advantages that ordinary working people don't have, so the least you can do is answer to everyone. Then on top of that, they're not even smart. Answer him. Another thing, but does it really pay off for them? They're focused on dividing people and blaming others as fascists, with the most sectarian cheering them on, like applauding that Vito Quiles didn't get an answer, praising Reski for ignoring him. They're fascists. But what those sectarian people don't realize is that those people are public figures who make a ton of money. From you, from me, and from yours as well. So they have the obligation, they should have the obligation to answer. Now they're going to change the regulations. I don't know if you've heard. The regulations of Congress, of the deputies with the journalists who are accredited there. And now they're going to pull a trick too. If you skip your turn to speak, you're sanctioned and barred from Congress for 3 months, or something like that. The problem is they never let you speak. So this problem wouldn't exist if they gave you the turn to speak. But the problem is that they only give the turn to speak to their 2 little friends, and that's it. So there wouldn't be any skipping of turns to speak if they answered everyone. It should be legally mandatory.
Yes, that's a symptom. When did this begin? Vito Quiles is a pioneer.
Obviously, when
all of this started happening a couple of years ago,
I think
Pachi Lopez from Spanish Socialist Workers' Party wondered if he'd be asked about their mistakes. How could you think of that? The point is, people started talking about it on social media. They started saying this was a terrible precedent for democracy. You have the obligation to answer the questions you're asked because not everyone agrees with your policies. And this is called a democracy.
In which
obviously, because of things like this, I believe in it less and less. Should it be mandatory? The point is, it's not just that they don't give you the floor. It's that when they do, they don't answer you. Exactly. No, I won't talk to you because you're from the far right.
Should I? I would love to. Ask Pachi Lopez, who is the most outspoken about this. Will the new regulations be bidirectional? I mean, if I don't answer, if I skip my turn to speak, I get sanctioned. But shouldn't you be sanctioned too if you don't answer a question? So is the pressure, the measure of pressure, only on journalists?
Politicians. No, and not on journalists. On the journalists who ask me questions that
I don't like. Of course, that's it. To my little friends, the ones I shower with public money, to my little friends.
Those who benefit from me and my little friends who just flatter me, I'm absolutely delighted with them. No problem there. Now then, the one who asks me legitimate questions, the one who asks me questions that most citizens want to know, that's the one I curse out. Why? Because that's the one who can expose me, who can show my flaws.
Exactly. For example, there was even a time when I looked at a journalist. With Yon Belara, put yourself in my shoes. I want people to empathize. You spend half an hour listening to an unbearable speech from Yone Belara, who goes there to hog the camera, and that's it. You're there enduring it, tanking through half an hour of unbearable speech. She opens the press conference, they give the microphone to her friend, the one from the friendly media outlet, and she asks a super stupid question. It was something like, what do you think about the new documentary about whatever, about immigration? And what do you think about illegal immigration? And so on, and so on. What the hell is she going to say? What is she going to say? I remember being so pissed off. I said, I've been here 3 hours this morning, and now I have to deal with this. Half an hour of unbearable speech. For one little question that he'll most likely not even answer. So only that lady can ask. And you asked that question? I turned and said, seriously? Seriously? I looked at her and said, seriously? Did you really ask that stupid question? Seriously? What? What does Podemos think about illegal immigration? And if they should regulate it? Seriously? Seriously? For real? Couldn't you think of another question? Of course. Then Vito Quiles asked him because there was controversy about the Eurovision topic, and well, they want to ban the participation of Israel in Eurovision, etc., etc. And Vito Quiles asked him about the Claro issue, already cutting off his microphone, you see? He asked him, Vito Quiles, both Vito Quiles and I, you always have to sneak in, because there's no other way. We wouldn't skip the turn to ask questions if they gave us the floor, if they gave us a voice. Yet they keep talking about democracy and freedom. And he asked her, so what about that in the end? La Kenta from Israel was a survivor of October 7th of the attack on October 6th. He asked when it all started, and if they also condemn that. If they're so feminist, etc., etc. Well, she left, she didn't answer, and she left. And it's always like that. So, to sum it all up, the Congress of Deputies is just a clique, media and politicians. They're just a little group of friends where it's all laughs, jokes, and gossip. Period. That's the best summary I can give you and all the taxpayers about the Congress of Deputies. It's absolutely terrible. Just like a banana republic. That's what it is.
Many people still haven't woken up yet.
People
Still don't understand that Spain is it's a Bolivarian republic. But come on. What saves us is that we have infrastructure. What saves us is that still we don't. You can still make some money, but every time they make it harder for you with the taxes. I'm fed up and I want to leave. Everything is getting worse and worse. About the blackout, they still don't even know exactly what happened.
and they're never going to find out. This is already half forgotten.
They were already calling it a cyber attack. Given all the reports, it clearly appears to be negligence. Because of too much energy. Renewable, they want to destroy nuclear power plants. What future does this country have left? It's just the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party mindset.
It's very hard to bring down. No, hard, not impossible. They've done it very well. They've polarized society between reds and blues. And the meme that you must have seen, and everyone must have seen, about at least they're not in power? The right wing is more active than ever. I'm not claiming it solves every problem, past or future. But what we cannot tolerate or allow is a society that applauds and covers its eyes in the face of all the cases of corruption, in the face of all the lies, in the face of everything. Because the right with the right would be worse. So in that case, there's little you can do.
Yes, it's truly absolutely devastating. And it's not just about what's happening in Congress. How they have set up a structure in which no one questions them. If we're talking about journalism, you go out on the street because you're someone who's gone out on the street 200 times and you ask people in general. It can be confidently said that half of the Spanish population, actually, I'll go further, 80% of Spaniards, They are absolute political ignoramuses who don't know about the corruption cases. And if they do know, what do they say? Lies from the far right? Share your interviewing experiences.
People, what is your perception about my perception and my conclusion? Many people who watch my videos and interviews, as well as myself, have concluded that universal suffrage is the biggest lie in human history. Not everyone can be a pilot, since you must pass several tests and filters. Not everyone can be a lawyer, since it requires earning a degree and masters. Not everyone can even be a waiter, because you have to have a food handler's certificate. But everyone can decide the future of their country and does decide the future of their country. As for slogans, labels, smoke, bias, and pollution and rot from the media,
my God, that's so based. And more than just based, I agree. And I say more openly each time that I'm not a Democrat. If democracy is understood as the current system we have, not everyone should have the right to vote. Some people find this hard to accept and look at you like, me? Why? Excuse me? If you get your information from the sect, if you get your information from watching television, it's like saying, I feed myself without eating. Literally, it's an oxymoron. You're not informed, you're programmed. And the system has done a very good job of nourishing the media with public money to keep the population aligned with a certain narrative. Do they treat anyone who challenges that narrative like they treat you in Congress? Still, share some experiences from the street. Rescue you. What is the worst thing you've encountered regarding public perception of modern social issues?
look, you have to understand that following what you've said, you have to understand the state of the country. I mean, for example, what is the most read book in Spain? Belén Esteban's biography? What are Spain's top watched shows? Gossip, rumors, what the tabloid press would call celebrity news. Do you really think that country is ready not just to vote, but to talk, have a dialogue, and debate about hot current issues? No, and you can see it in the interviews. What's the worst thing I've come across? People whose heads are full of dogmas, labels, and smoke. I mean, I know. Is there no equality in Spain? No, Spain is sexist. Why? When you feed on dogmas and there's nothing but dogmas and smoke, when they ask you why, because if I could change the name of my channel, I would. Why? I want to find reasons beyond ideology and understand things for myself. Because I think it's extremely dangerous for a society when people don't know how to say why they say things.
That's right. I completely agree with you. That's fundamental. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone believes in something. Everyone knows clearly who they're voting for. Everyone is certain about which policy they would implement and believes they know for sure. Why? They think a certain way, but when you ask them, okay, give me an argument, give me a reason, that's where we see the extreme glitch, the exercise of reasoning why you think a certain way. They've removed it from Spanish society. People just follow blindly.
But do you know why? Because people's ideology is based on emotion and not on reason. I mean, you're a Real Madrid fan because when you were a kid, your grandfather took you to the Santiago Bernabeu because your whole family supports Real Madrid and there doesn't have to be a reason why. It's an emotion, a feeling. But the dangerous thing about this is that you're with the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party just like you're with Real Madrid or Barcelona. They made it ideological. Instead of a reason, a why. Hey, well look, I'm with the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party because of this, and this. But why? I don't know. It's an emotion. The moment they tell me that this is how it is and they can't explain it to me, their ideas, their principles, and their ideology are based purely on emotions. And answering your question, what have I found? Emotions. Emotions loaded with labels. Emotions filled with smoke. There's nothing. You scratch and there's nothing. And those people vote. And those politicians we have up there with public money, no matter how many mistakes, corruption cases, or lies they commit, people still vote for them. Because they're part of their football team. Just think about one thing now. Recently, for example, Barcelona was eliminated from the Champions League. And before that, Real Madrid was eliminated from the Champions League. You'll notice something, and so will viewers. When Real Madrid was eliminated, the Real Madrid fans were shouting, Mbappe resignation, Mbappe out, no Mbappe, right? No, but...
Well, players?
Soccer players. Yes, yes. Was there blame? Was there blame or was there criticism? Hey, there are players who aren't good enough. This team is crap. We're not playing for anything. This is garbage. We're not doing anything. Barca was the same. These years, now it's gotten better. During these years, Barcelona faced criticism, even from their own fans. At one point, they also criticized Coach Xavi. Rafinha, or this one or that one, there was criticism from their own team. In politics, it's even worse. They get insulted and still applaud. I mean, just imagine a Real Madrid fan or a Barcelona fan. Their team keeps lying to them, stealing from them, losing matches. They never get past the Champions League round of 16 or the final. And the fans applauding something that would be unthinkable, that would be stupid. If Barca, Madrid, or any soccer team keeps losing, it would be the fans of that soccer match themselves who would point at the players, the coach, and the president. In politics, people are even more fanatical than with soccer teams. Because the voters of that political party themselves don't point at their representatives, they applaud them, defend them, and justify them. He didn't lie, he just changed his mind. It's not that, well, they had to make a deal. Of course he said that, but obviously they had to make a deal. No, well, I think that they had to stop the turbo ride. Of course, they justify it to you. There's nothing more dangerous than a society that's based purely on emotion, but purely on sectarian emotion. Because in soccer teams, there's emotion, but even so, there's criticism of the soccer players, of the coaches, of soccer, of the president. Here, not even that. Here, it's just sectarianism and pure raw emotion. And no matter what he does, I'm sure, and you'll agree with me, no matter what he does. Pedro Sánchez and the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. Right now, we're discussing them. Will they be justified?
Look, I'm not a fan of the PP, not at all. Everyone knows it. In fact, I think the PP is even a bigger cancer than the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party when it comes to deceiving the conservative population.
In fact, it doesn't forgive. If you remove Pedro Sánchez and put Freixo in, is anything going to change? Is anything going to change? I don't think anything will change. In fact, Agenda 2030 is the same. But
the point is, the PP doesn't have the institutional or media power that the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party has. You may like Rajoy's government more, you may like it less. But obviously it was constantly beset by corruption cases, which were obviously, with great fanfare, they opened the news broadcasts. It was 24/7, a constant racket. In fact, Rajoy leaves power not through elections, Rajoy leaves power because of a vote of no confidence due to corruption. And Pedro Sánchez has already far surpassed all the cases of corruption of the ones they had much worse and more blatant involving cocaine and prostitutes. If this happened to the PP, would it survive? The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, however, always survives. It endures everything. If Pedro Sánchez were caught tomorrow with a corpse in the trunk, he'd say it was a fascist who tried to kill him. Spanish Socialist Workers' Party voters will say, "Good job, Pedro, that's one less fascist to fight."
this is where I really agree with you, because the PP, I'm very far from the PP. What matters isn't the what, but the who. It's brutal. Look, I'll give you the best example I can. 2012, 2013, if I remember correctly. Ebola. Do you remember what happened with Ebola when it got contaminated? Teresa Romero, who was a nurse, and she infected a dog. Her dog? Excalibur. There were over 20 protests in 2012, 2013, which is significant. There were more than 20 protests during Rajoy's government because of the death of a dog that was infected with Ebola. More than 20 protests all over Spain. A blackout has killed 10 people. And counting. Any protest? What matters is not the what, but the who. I'll do you one even better. Ebola. Dog dies, 20 protests. Another virus. The pandemic one. I won't name it. You know how this goes. There was a virus in 2020, hundreds of thousands of animals were culled, right? Hundreds of thousands on farms, hundreds of thousands. Was there any protest? Because now the people have to ask themselves this question. And I'm asking you, ironically, because you know it's not about what, but about who. Because with a dog named Excalibur, they protested all over Spain, and with hundreds of thousands of animals also sacrificed. Almost 10 years later, 8 years later, there were zero protests. Why is it that for one animal, yes, but for hundreds of thousands, no? When it's the same thing, they carry a virus and have to be sacrificed. Why? Why?
Because the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party controls the narrative. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party controls what people think, the control. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party is the party that best understands the collective psyche, best understands its society, best recognizes their herd mentality, and better, he manipulates them. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party is a metastatic cancer in the psyche of a large percentage of the Spanish population. That is the answer, and I don't see a way out, at least not anytime soon.
Do you know what the...
Wait. If there is a way out, we won't see it until we're very old. The solution is for an entire generation to die. What I'm going to say is very harsh. But there's an entire generation with such deep indoctrination in their minds that they have to go. And the young people aren't buying it anymore. Young people no longer watch television.
Because they don't watch television anymore. They don't watch television. They already have another platform.
Do you see this? Young people watch Pedro Bourbon. Young people watch Victor. Young people watch you. Young people watch Vito. Young people follow Albice. Young people follow Vox. Because the other day I was on the web with Abascal and I was amazed. That's when I realized it with Abascal. I may have my ups and downs, but he's more aligned with my values. I saw many young people asking him for photos.
Just like no one else.
I'd never seen young people treat a politician like that before. I feel the same about the vice president as they do.
Who asks Pedro Sánchez for photos?
Pedro Sánchez can't go out on the street. Well, but...
If someone asks him for photos, what's their age?
So as not to lose track?
Yes. Do they request photos from him? Could they be the legendary Carlos over 60? The problem I see... This solution needs a generational shift. By then, the country will be completely destroyed. But analyzing, I like to just stare off like that and start thinking. People think I'm just zoning out, but no, I'm thinking. And I came to that conclusion, and it's very terrible and very harsh. There's a whole generation whose minds you're not going to change, you just won't. I mean, it's so deeply ingrained in them. Is it part of the current generation's identity? I don't want them to have that same thing. A problem, but focused on things that I might consider more positive. But you can't be dogmatic either. And when it comes to politics, you have to be a more flexible person when it comes to understanding. You can't label yourself with, oh, this party represents me, so now I can't criticize anything they do. Exactly, Albice Perez is my friend, so I can't criticize his mistakes. Vox represents my values, so if they do this, it's because I'm from Vox. So, with Santiago Abascal, I wouldn't criticize him, even if I had a body in the trunk. No. I want the future generation that consumes this kind of content to develop critical thinking. Let loyalty be to principles and values, not to slogans, not to a color, not to a party. That's what needs to be made here. In this society and education system, we aren't taught to reason, question, or think critically. So the only change that can happen in this country is when this generation confronts the older generation. This also causes conflict, as the older generation doesn't want to listen to the young people. We are telling them, gentlemen, you are leaving us a country where we can't buy a house, we can't have a family, or have a well-paid job. It's a pipe dream. They say, oh, that's fine, but Pedro Sánchez gave me a 50 euro pension raise, so too bad for you. So there's going to be a generational clash, just like there's already a complicated clash between the sexes. I mean, we're in a situation where we have to be very tough and at the same time very diplomatic. I urge all young people to confront their elders at home, but with love. Much can be achieved through love and calm, reasonable explanations. There's no need to ruin Christmas dinner, but when you see a small opening, a little crack, a bit of doubt, step in. You need the right tools, information, and a strong vocabulary. And above all, you have to do it from a perspective where you're not trying to impose, but rather trying to help them understand the situation in which we are. I don't want conflict, but it's inevitable given our situation. I wonder what you think about my reflection.
I agree, but you have to understand that I've been to the universities, so there's an indoctrination there, Feroz. I mean, I understand and I agree that there are a lot of young people who no longer do. Because until just a few years ago, the only source you absorbed and that got into your brain was television. And until not that long ago, there were only 2 channels and that's it. In Spain, there were 2 channels, 2 newspapers, and that's it. I see that as justifiable, more than justifiable, understandable, and there's a logical explanation for why there's that hive mind, because there's no variety, there's no variable thinking. Now, with the internet and various Twitter channels, the media's different, and there's no excuse. A sectarian person won't consider other ideologies. So with that, let's say he's the one who loses. If you want to live in a cave and hear your own echo, go ahead. What's beautiful and satisfying in life for your mind and personal fulfillment is to listen and to confront different options. Opinions, different points of view. That's what makes you better. I mean, if I, for example, what problem do you have with the Red Pill podcast? That feminists don't come because Carla Galeote or Alan Barroso want to live in their own bubble, in their echo chamber. They don't want to confront. Why? What does that make you think that they create cracks? Their arguments? They can't defend themselves or know how to. So, is that what you're implying to me? That Carla Galeote of the moment, or all of you? You would love to have a Cindy Takanashi or a Carla Galeote on Red Pill podcast, but would you have any problem?
I'll go further. I don't want them on my platform. I want them to invite me to theirs.
For example,
the problem is deeper. The problem
is not
just that. Don't come to the conservative platforms. Don't come to the platforms that they consider of far right or sexist or patriarchal. The problem is that even though they could invite us to their platforms for more power, they still don't. To steer the conversation wherever they want. Do they have one or several? And I say this to you like this in Itakanashi, from a position where I'm not trying to hurt you. You asked me to do a show together on Abro Paraguas and said it would happen in February, but now you don't have the guts. But why? Because their arguments, because I destroy them argumentatively, they have no way to hold up.
But of course. But when they don't want to debate with Jay or with Rescue You, what they're saying, clearly, with a giant sign is, my arguments, my ideology, and my principles, I can't defend them, and I'm only going to debate with the same people from my own side.
Ideological. So,
is there no personal growth at all? Nothing, zero. If you only praise each other within your own ideological group. And today, yes, you're right. Oh, yes, you're right too. Is it
super microsexist that they give the coke to the girl and the guy? These are things that just don't make sense. I mean, the level of stupidity. Just to clarify, I'm not speaking about Cindy, but about the stupidity people face. I always say it, folks, if your intellectual role model, if your reference for social criticism, if your political reference doesn't sit down to defend their ideas with their counterpart, I don't get why you admire them. I admire those who go on television. I admire Jordan Peterson, someone who has been ambushed. He has appeared on biased television shows, traveled globally to agenda-driven conferences, and visited universities. And he has always defended his position and always come out on top. That shows me that his arguments are solid. Agustin Laje. I could list many people I consider intellectual role models. Like hell. You guys support and defend people who only move and defend their ideas in echo chambers and are never confronted.
And I raise the stakes. Not only, no. Listen to me carefully. Because what I'm going to tell you is very important. Not only what you said, but I can do even better. How can you follow influencers who take public money, who act all critical, constructive, and argumentative in public, but then take public money from the government in power? Do you think your favorite influencer right now, here, Alan Barroso, Carla Galeote, etc., will those who earn thousands of euros for talks really criticize the current Spanish Socialist Workers' Party? Let's do an exercise of reporting now. Look, this is my camera, right? Yes, that's it. Is this the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party speaking? No, wait. I want to give you some context. Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. Alan Barroso, a political scientist, a university student, has studied at the university. And you? In a utopian state? Do you want to believe he's critical, unbiased, and puts on pressure? He's going to point out our representatives. Do you honestly believe you're scum and trash, Alan Barroso? Why? Because you pretend to be a worker. You deceive your people by acting like a worker. How could I not be left-wing if I'm from the working class? They sell that kind of dogma, don't they? Well, then you, Alan Barroso, get paid more than 3,000 euros for 2 3-minute reels, which comes out to more than 60,000 euros an hour of public money. And these scum and these trash pretend to be workers and part of the working class. A guy who sells those slogans, those labels, and those dogmas of no. If you earn little money, if you're a wage earner, you have to vote for the left because that's the working class, because they look out for the workers. The same guy who tells you that makes more than 3,000 bucks for 2 minutes of video. People with no principles who sell themselves to the highest bidder. And then these people act like critics, like they're the standard, like they're the pressure and the journalists, and they're the ones who wear the badge of real journalists. An extremist has kicked out, has boycotted, and hasn't allowed the real journalists to do their job. Journalists are people like Alan Barroso, who gets paid 60,000 bucks an hour by the government in power. And so, that Alan Barroso won't be able to criticize the government in power, because he's getting paid off. Right? No, right? Exactly.
It's simply brutal.
And I'm going
to make a critique here as well. There are now influencers with no political background, but the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party state of mind aims to engage with fashion and TikTok influencers. Marina Rivers' brother, the rejection I feel towards that girl is very strong, very strong. Not just because of the hypocrisy of her saying she has 2 degrees. And that people only see her as a pair of boobs, when all she does is show her boobs on TikTok and shake her ass. Isn't that it? What pisses me off the most is that she goes around talking about feminism, about equality, about women. Obviously, is she the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party giving her money there? So that she stays aligned with that narrative. Not only that, but she even goes to Cuba to talk about how amazing tourism is in Cuba, paid for by the Cuban government. Honestly, young people who are listening to me, young people who are listening to Rescue, please never follow people who get paid with public money and who support dictatorships by promoting tourism. In those cases, the only ones who benefit from that are the ones who have the Cuban people under their control. Long live free Cuba, long live free Venezuela. Down with the fucking communism and down with cancerous socialism that only creates a mediocre society that demands successful results. Without lifting a finger. That's enough? That's enough. And Marina Rivers, I hope you find the light. I'm not criticizing you so that people will denounce you or so that people will be. You always stay there. Realize the harm you're causing. Giving those speeches and aligning yourself with a government that's promoting that you, in the not so distant future, won't be able to shake your butt on TikTok? Dear.
Careful, I think it's an incredible lack of respect to millions of people because the situation in Cuba is... Does it make you want to cry? I want to go to Cuba, but to make a real documentary, and I never. You have
to be very careful because those people don't mess around. Yes, that's...
I know. Just like you wanted to go to Morocco.
And to wave
the GTV flag? Of course, but in the end, what do I want? Shake my butt like Marina Rivers, do meaningful things, or get public money? From a state with an island under complete control, left starving and powerless? If we want to change things, it involves a risk. So what I would love is to go to Cuba one day and really show what's there. And I think we should do something. Deal? I'll go with you to Cuba.
I'll go with you.
To Cuba, we'll do a special Cuba blog.
J Rescue. We need Oscar from Greenfeets and Loro in case we get arrested or something happens. So we have strong media pressure.
International.
But Oscar can't go anymore.
No.
It's not about him going. It's in case something happens to us on the island. They tried to get us out that the pressure is high. Because, brother, those people don't mess around.
Yes, I know.
Those people do whatever it takes to stay in power. The worst part is, I'm seeing that the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, basically it's the same. They'll do anything to keep power.
Very dangerous. But that's why we're going to close the deal. If we go to Cuba, we go together. A blog, Cuba J Rescue, revealing Cuba's situation and supporting our Cuban brothers. Within a year, we have to get it done, Cerrado.
Let's go.
Cuba, we're coming for you. Castro, is that how your girlfriend leaves you? Did she owe you that? Your girlfriend, how much does she weigh? It's all good. But that's still on.
Let's discuss the final topic, which I believe is very important. Adrian?
It's very. There are a few things before you start the topic. We will go without ever receiving any public money, not before, during, or after. That's why it's important, and I'm glad you said it. When you pay attention to, be careful who you follow. A person like Marina Rivers, who I think she's not the only Alan Barroso who receives public money. You can't trust them at all, since they're going to have an incredible bias. Why? Because they're corrupted, they're bribed. In the end, we call it a payment, but it's a bribe. Alan Barroso got $3,000 for 2 2-minute reels. There, it said. He defended himself, saying it wasn't payment for a job. No, excuse me, don't be a hypocrite. Nobody gets paid 3,000 euros for 2 crappy reels. You were bribed, period. They're buying you. To have you with a fresh face, to clean up and improve the government's image.
The issue is whether they can pay you 3,000 euros for a reel when it's the state, not a brand, paying you.
A brand, or even 60,000 or 100,000 if you prefer. Let everyone pay what they want in the private sector. Let the sector pay you.
Public sector, so you can kiss their ass?
Of course, it's shameful.
Well, rescue. To wrap up, man, I think we need to talk about a very important topic. Few people are so aware. Illegal immigration is an issue, but I oppose approaching it that way. I don't want this place filled with immigrants. No, we're not going to approach it from the perspective of the mafia, the racket, the business that illegal immigration represents in Spain.
There are a whole network and a whole business which you described in the best possible way. It's a mafia, because there's no other word for it. I mean, it fits the definition of a mafia. An organization that commits illegal acts for economic gain, which is human trafficking. I mean, you have associations, it's a whole network. You have the NGOs that bring those boats, right? They bring them. It's well proven and monitored that they depart from the African coast. Recently, there was news that said a boat was brought that was 550 kilometers off the coast of Tenerife. Damn. I can understand bringing them in when they're close to save them, bring them in and then deport them, or find them a solution. But what we're seeing is that they're being brought directly from the African coasts. Towed, they're left only a few kilometers off the Canary Islands coast. And then they become the responsibility of the Red Cross, which is another mafia. And then also the social workers, the shelters. It's all a business, all a business. And the first ones interested, obviously, are the girls who are 20, 25, 30 years old. They're social educators with degrees, but they can't actually do anything. And they have to dedicate themselves to this, to human trafficking, justifying and forcing immigrants. I'm not making this up. One of them told me this at the center. At an illegal immigration center in North Tenerife, just a few kilometers from.
What is it?
What did he tell you? He told me literally, and it's recorded, the illegal immigrant literally told me. No, the workers say you claim to be older or younger repeatedly. So the social workers themselves force the immigrants who come by boat to say that they are minors. And you see a guy who's 6'3" with a white beard and so on, who says he's 16 or 17 years old. And you go there, you get soaked, because if you trust the government, recently Pilar came out, the spokesperson for, no, the general secretary, I think she was from the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party, saying that they're children fleeing from war. They're not fleeing from war, and they're not children. It's completely a lie. The last time I went, I asked an immigrant who had arrived just a few days ago from Mauritania. How many of you were adults? Well, out of a boat of about 80 people, 2 or 3 were minors. The rest were 30 or older. That's how it is, and the government is lying to us. I mean, the NGOs and all these groups that benefit financially from illegal immigration are associated with the government. The government is interested in keeping this going, and the NGOs themselves are also interested in keeping this going, because every year they receive millions and millions and millions of euros in subsidies. From the non-governmental organization Opening Arms, which brings in immigrants, to the Red Cross, and even the small social service workers who are interested in this. Let them come, because otherwise they wouldn't have a job. And that's why they defend this model of illegal immigration so strongly. They're minors. I mean, they're considered minors even when they're over 30 years old, and so on and so on. I mean, they're living based on an illegality like human trafficking with lies. They're not fleeing war, they're not children, and they don't come alone in dinghies. They're towed, encouraged, and brought here intentionally, or the business would end. I mean, do you really think that all the tea I give you back? Let me rephrase the question so it's clearer. Do you really think that social services, shelters, NGOs, are they trying to stop them? Boats? No. No, because if they stop coming one day, illegal immigration. What are they going to live on? If they don't have a problem to solve.
Brother, is it possible? Can this issue relate to feminism? Do you think that feminists, careful, not the thoughtful feminists or those protesting, not those indoctrinated,
The ones who get paid.
but the ones who eat very well, based on little scams, each victim, money from the union. Do you think that the subsidized feminists are interested in stopping the violence, in stopping the victims, in stopping the reports? The answer is no, because they would lose their livelihood. And as Rescue rightly said, since they don't even know how to do the simplest thing, each victim is a... Yes, exactly. Every person who comes from Africa, speaking about the topic of immigration. For those committed to this business, it's...
I'm going to say something harsh, but it's realistic and necessary. Every time a woman in this country dies at the hands of her husband, the Ministry of Equality pops open a bottle of champagne. Is it harsh to say it? Yes. Can it be a bit harsh to say it? Also, but it's realistic. Can you handle it if there are twice as many victims next year? The Ministry of Equality and all its crew, tooth and nail, shouting at the top of their lungs, is the Ministry of Equality necessary? We must double resources, since this is genocide and they're killing us in pairs. They are the first ones who are interested in not only making sure the problem doesn't end, but that it actually gets worse. We can extrapolate this to the issue of illegal immigration. The NGOs, the social services workers, and the whole network. Are they interested in ending human trafficking, people smuggling, and stopping the boats from coming? No, they want more and more to come, because it means more financial gain. Like you mentioned on your podcast, more people and viewers are joining. Because it benefits you financially, things go better for you economically, and you're happier, it gives you more personal satisfaction, and you have financial and personal stability. Those who profit from these problems are most invested in keeping them ongoing. So, when society asks itself, what can we do to put an end to femicides? Put an end to the rackets? What has happened in Argentina? Is Mali coming? The Ministry of Equality is out, remember? No? Outside the Ministry of Equality closed. The Ministry of Women, what happened? They have reduced the number of women killed by their husbands and sexual violence and all of that. And they receive much more money than what they get in Spain. And harsher punishments. So what matters most to you is harsher punishments for those who commit it. So we have, because they have things in common, they live off the same thing, they live off problems. The Ministry of Equality lives off the death of women at the hands of their male partners. And from that they make a business and celebrate each death. Because that will earn them a profit. And do you really believe it? I'm going to say it the other way around. Do you really believe that if next year, instead of 50 female victims, there are five, in 1 year the percentage has dropped enormously? Do you think they'll celebrate it? They're going to say, oh, wait a minute. If we solve the problem, why would they give us subsidies? Why would they give us $1 million government budgets? No, you know what?
I would say, no, let me explain to you what the story would be. Would it? Thanks to this money. It's been reduced, so keep giving us the money. Could the same ones die again? Would they do it? It doesn't matter. Even if more die, they won't think we're inefficient or incapable.
Of course, that's it.
It doesn't matter, they control the story. If more die, we need more money. If fewer die, keep giving us the money since it's saving lives. It doesn't matter, but either way, will they still get that good money?
But what's clear is that their business with public money is based on a problem. We agree on that. And their narrative is based on that problem. In fact, they use demagoguery. And many psychologists, psychiatrists, and sociologists who aren't influenced by woke ideology say it's not sensible to count the victims the way they do. There have already been 14 so far this year. So, the moment you cut a problem at its root, society no longer sees it as justifiable to have a ministry that spends millions and millions and millions and millions of euros of public money.
The worst part is that the victim's money doesn't go.
It doesn't help victims, it supports violent areas. Sorry to interrupt you. If all that money, which is a lot, went directly to the victims, because there are victims. Hey, perfect nobody? Neither you, Jota, nor I are denying it. Help women who really need it. But on top of that, to make matters worse, the real victims of abuse by their partners. Abuse occurs between women, between men, and from women to men. But, by any chance, does this feminism of equality only defend female victims abused by men? Don't ask me why. Well, yes, but that's how the business and the narrative are. So, what do we see? Like the recent major issue with illegal immigration and the Red Cross. The biggest expense of the Red Cross, for example, didn't really go to aid, but to salaries for groups. I mean, the money allocated to these kinds of setups isn't for helping. It's to maintain a group of people who live very well off this problem. And this is something you need to get into your head. It's very hard to accept and understand that there are a number of people who, just talking, want to make you see. They say they want to end the problem of sexist murders, but you have to understand that they make a living off those sexist murders. So they're the first ones who are not at all interested in seeing this problem end. They'll drag it out like chewing gum as long as possible. Because the vast majority of these people who come from these little setups don't know how to do absolutely anything with their lives. They all have in common that they come from degrees, with all due respect. Without job opportunities, it might give you more personal satisfaction or not. But these are people who have no work experience at all. They don't know what to do with their lives. They can't do anything with their lives. Because they've done nothing but live off public resources.
Absolutely. But look, speaking of immigration, illegal. Speaking about feminism, we found a pattern. The pattern is as follows. Problem, you create a problem in society. You
Put it
into the psyche. People react, then you sell the
solution.
which is the solution to illegal immigration just to catch them. And a kind of structure is created in which many people live very comfortably, receiving public money. Where is the problem? This is not a coincidence, my friends. There's a plan here. All of this is an erosion of the structure that has brought us here. All of this is an erosion of our civilization. All of this is a constant hammering at the foundations of our civilization. And I am convinced that if we prevail, it will be through a conflict. I don't see a way out. I don't see a peaceful solution. And the connection I want to make with these issues is also, can we talk about the pharmaceutical companies in the same way? Do you think that if people learn to prevent diseases, if people learn to stay healthy, if people learn to nourish and feed themselves properly, to eliminate ultra-processed foods, will big pharmaceutical companies be happy? No. So the whole system is based on selling a problem, because I have the solution right here. I'm cutting off society's leg, but only because I have the crutches. If everyone is limping, everyone will have my crutches. If everyone is sick, everyone will have my cure. If everyone sees that a lot of women are dying, it's because I take control of the media and exaggerate it. A problem. Everyone will agree that we should spend thousands and thousands and thousands of millions. So this is a widespread social issue that people don't realize.
Also, man, we were discussing illegal immigration. And I think the Canary Islands are the best example of how a part... Look, I'm never going to generalize, okay? Because there are fantastic people in the Canary Islands. Damn, I know it, man, I know it. Yeah. And people who greet me, recognize me, thank me for what I'm teaching, which the media doesn't show us. Especially the...
Skunk, right? The damn skunk?
No. Yeah, I want to remind you that you used to talk to me about young people, and I would say, be careful with them at the universities, because there's a part that they keep indoctrinating. And that's what I've seen in the Canary Islands. Look, recently, just a few days ago, there was a protest against tourism in the Canary Islands. I mean, the Canary Islands, one of the regions, if not the most, that is the poorest in Spain and among the poorest in Europe. It lacks industry and agriculture, and what little exists is subsidized by the peninsula, by Spain, and by the European Union. It has absolutely nothing. The only thing they live on is tourism, and they want to ruin it. I even go further. I can understand if you're against massive and super over-massified tourism without any kind of filters, because it raises prices, mobility becomes more difficult, and so on, but you have absolutely nothing. Tourism is the Canary Islands' lifeline, and you want to destroy it, but then they stay quiet and obey, and say yes to the illegal immigration that arrives almost every day in the Canary Islands. And where they've already reached a point, what I found is that they've reached a point where there's so-called overbooking in those illegal immigration centers, and they have to send them to the mainland. I mean, we've all seen those videos. At Tenerife North Airport, where there are huge lines of people from Morocco, Algeria, Mauritania, entire fleets of planes taking them to the mainland. You see, what I mean by this is that you have a part of Canary Island society. It's the best example I can give of how rotten a person and a part of society can be. And the best example is the Canary Islands. You have a part of Canary Islands society where they don't want industry, because it harms the environment and so on and so forth, where they don't want tourism, which is the only thing they live on. They pretend to be the world's non-governmental organization when they can't even support themselves because everyone leaves. Young people have to go to the mainland or the rest of Europe to work. And what do they expect? They support illegal immigration and don't protest it, yet oppose tourism, their main source of income. They make the islands a quagmire and a harem. And then, those same people who have turned the situation in the Canary Islands into garbage. And they have to go to the mainland. They have to leave. And then, because then I found out, I didn't know there were so many idiots making so much noise. It's true because I've come across them. This type, like you said, the skunk and all that. The skunk is people who are perverted.
I've never gone so hard on YouTube.
With someone as I did with La Mofeta. Dude, is that why your video got deleted? People who come out of university completely indoctrinated, who reject tourism, who upload illegal immigration. Therefore, they turn the islands into a harem, into a desert with no kind of future, but then they go to the mainland. Do they reject Spain? Did you know there are many separatists in the Canary Islands? They refer to mainlanders in a derogatory way. Godos, the Godos, oh the Godos, the damn Godos, the Godos. You talk badly about the Godos, but then you sure do send the illegal immigrants you get in the Canary Islands to the...
Godos? Them.
Why can't they fit on the islands? Do you want unlimited illegal immigration? They're people, Muyalo, so we must welcome them. But then, after you badmouth the Godos, you still bring them to the towns in Castilla y León, Castilla-La Mancha, Murcia, Galicia, to little villages. I mean, we don't want the Godos, but we send them the ones you don't want. You want the Godos when dealing with illegal immigration on the peninsula. And then you turn the islands into a harem with no kind of future prospects. But then, oh Muyalo, there's no future in the Canaries, there's no future. Because of you and your poor and shitty socialist mentality, you've ruined all the industry. You don't want industry, you don't want tourism, you don't even want to be able to support yourself. You want to be the non-governmental organization for all of Africa. And you turn your islands into a muddy mess, and then you go to the peninsula of those shitty Goths. Dude, because you've turned your islands into a muddy mess with no prospects at all. Perfect, they are. A constant walking contradiction. Those same university students, it's really important, we were talking about interviews, those same university students who want to be the world's non-governmental organization, but then they reject. Tourism is the sole source of support. They turn everything into trash, and they're the same ones who say, well, my ideology turns this into trash, and I'm going to have to leave. And haven't you thought that your economic model is turning the Canary Islands into trash, and that's why you have to leave?
No, it's the same. Because that's why, look, do you know why I hate Mofeto so much? I don't hate him because I truly have no hate in my heart, but I hate
His way of thinking.
But Mofeto is a character who was Venezuelan. That's where I started to get annoyed. He was my compatriot, you know? I saw him, he was a socialist, very leftist, and super hippie. And I say, but why the hell do you leave Venezuela, man? Just to come to another country and keep supporting what made you leave. That's when I started to get pissed off, and I saw him there with all the punks and so on. Man, listen, I know punks, they're good people and all that. This isn't a personal attack. This is an attack on the way of thinking, and above all, my attack is about the results. People need to stop judging an ideology. They need to stop judging a way of thinking. They need to stop judging an economic system based on their emotions, based on how nice it sounds, based on how good it makes people feel. The words,
He judges.
how does a country and a society function with a system? Judge the results, observe them. In fact, don't even judge them. Just observe them without any kind of bias, and you'll realize that socialism is cancer, period.
Just so you know, you were referring to the narrative in this country about the left. I realize how powerful the narrative is. A university student who fled Venezuela told me, yes, the situation in Venezuela is terrible because of socialism, right? Minister Mafa, sure, socialism ruined everything, etc. I don't know. Which political party would you vote for here? The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. The Spanish Socialist Workers' Party is left-wing, yet you're leaving a far-left socialist country only to support socialism here? Yes. And don't you see it? A bit hypocritical. Well, yes, that's how it is. I mean, even if they flee from countries where that economic model exists, I'm going to cut you off right away. The Venezuelan?
Average, never, never. Not even the Cuban.
Well, I've met them. Cubans? I've met... No, not Cubans. No, but I have.
There are few, brother. Please, brothers, compatriots.
My guys, listen to me. In fact, Greenfeeds reacted to it. A Cuban would swear she's Cuban. She was Cuban Venezuelan, I know. But even she would ban right-wing parties. She was in Spain, remember?
You have to be very careful because there are a lot of people who defend certain ideas because they make a good living from them. There are people who
are related to the government.
Here, yes, just like Alan goes here.
Barroso, yes, I have to have it.
As if Alan Barroso is leaving.
Another
country for anything.
And he talks about the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party. What is the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party going to say? So,
of course, you have to be very careful. In Venezuela, here in Madrid, a plague of Venezuelans is arriving.
Ah, okay, so there are some...
No, but they're the ones who took everything. And they're buying up half of Salamanca and all that. Obviously, they're not born rich. They're people dealing with gold and emeralds. Be careful. I don't want to discuss it much since it concerns me personally.
No, but I have to say this from personal experience. 95% of the Venezuelans and Cubans I've met speak very badly about the economic model and socialism in general. That's true, though.
Venezuela isn't socialist. It's a narco-dictatorship.
Venezuela is...
A narco-dictatorship. Venezuela has no taxes, only extortion and shootings. People do their own thing, but no bureaucracy stops you from succeeding in business. It's crazy. If they see you sticking your head out too much, maybe they'll come to rob you. Due to the law or whatever. Venezuela is the jungle. Venezuela is nothing. Spain seems more socialist, with a large bureaucratic state that is, in some ways, efficient at extracting resources from citizens. Is number one. Spain can't be. Misses a single damn cent. The other day, Victor, shout out to him, posted a meme that was hilarious about the tax inspector. When you have 100 euros with everyone there.
Dancing, you freak out?
He doesn't miss a thing.
And if you don't pay taxes, you're in big trouble. If it's already punished, it's punished even more. If you ignore,
150,000 euros that they
Consider that
you defrauded, and the sentence is like you raped someone.
it's on par. We've even seen cases, especially, for example, with hit and runs under the influence of alcohol, where the sentences are 1 year, 2 years. And if you don't have a criminal record, you don't go to prison. And then a person who hasn't paid certain taxes goes to jail for a bunch of years. So, do you realize the confiscatory pressure there is in this country?
Rescue, just to wrap up for me. Talking about the issues of feminism, illegal immigration, and so on, it's all connected, as illegal immigration directly correlates with more sexual assaults in Spain. That's been proven. This isn't racism or anything like that. Notice there's a direct link between laws from the Ministry of Equality, like the yes means yes law, and related outcomes. What they're doing is releasing a bunch of rapists so that this problem continues. I mean, I don't think they're stupid. I don't think they're doing it because they're ineffective. I don't think they're doing it because they're completely useless. I think they're very useful for making women keep suffering. That is to say, and I state here, the Ministry of Equality and the policies of the current government of Pedro Sánchez. They are creating a breeding ground for women to be more likely and have a higher chance of suffering an assault, being killed, or having anything negative happen to them in the street. And that's precisely what they're looking for, so that the problem continues to exist, and with the problem ongoing, the money is justified.
Why? The best summary I can give you? Why the Ministry of Equality, all these associations, and the media? When there's a case of group rape by white, heterosexual, cis basic guys, it appears in all the media and it's talked about constantly. But then, when the group is brown or black, they don't say anything at all. And there's a brutal media silence. And we have cases and cases and cases and cases.
No, there are a lot of them.
There are a lot of cases. Sorry to interrupt you, Jota, but just recently, there was a case with a group of African people, a person from Algeria, a Moroccan, and some others from outside. In fact, some of them were in an illegal immigration center, and they assaulted a very young girl. Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything?
Not at all, not at all. Why? They're not interested because it conflicts with their pro-immigration narrative. What if people... Samuel Vasquez clearly demonstrates the dangers of illegal immigration with numbers and precise language. People, of course, like now, are with Vox. Oh, is that the far right? I mean, they've been... We're back to the topic of the media. They condition people to view any narrative close to reality but differing from the official approved version as morally wrong. So saying this makes you seem like a fascist? Thank God young people are buying it less and less, despite the indoctrination in universities. Before we finish, I want to discuss a topic with you. Sex workers. Sorry, let me repeat. Cut this, Buru. I want to touch on a topic with you before we wrap up the podcast. Some social workers at the centers have had sexual relationships with both young people and adults who are inside there.
You know what I've realized? I told you earlier about the social workers. Their incentive for this illegal immigration problem to continue is obviously the economic profit from public money. But there's also another incentive, which is the sexual incentive. There are many women who... I arrived there at an immigration center and they had an illegal immigrant as a partner. I mean, to put it plainly, there are many workers who not only receive their salary on the payroll and also paid in black market cash. Is that right? They are women in the Spanish sex market. Wouldn't stand a chance. And they see it as a golden opportunity, the power they're given. Mandangon. I put myself in the shoes of Mari Carmen, 28 years old, who doesn't even get a look from Jesus Christ on Tinder, or in Spain in general. And I say, wow, here are a bunch of immigrants who see me in a good light, because for them it's also an opportunity to get into the country. Just like there is sex tourism by men in certain countries, like Thailand. There is also a sexual incentive from these workers towards immigrants who come illegally. I mean, put yourself in the situation, like I said, Mari Carmen, 120 kilos, hasn't had sex in 2 or 3 years. Then comes a big guy, 38 years old, 6'3", with a 20 centimeter penis. Is it like that? And on top of that, he makes money from it, because that's how he makes a living thanks to the human trafficking business. It's a textbook 2 for 1.
How incredible. Well, that's it.
I mean, I laugh. I laugh because of the personal situation. I mean, I laugh because of how surreal the situation is. But it's real, it's more raw, it's the most real thing you could ever face. I mean, these are women who make a living from this, from human trafficking, and on top of that, they also benefit from them sexually. Totally. Brother, it's a textbook 2 for 1 deal.
How much of this has there been?
In Casa de Campo, where I went to an immigration center, this is something that really amuses me. They open centers for illegal immigration and unaccompanied minors. And all the neighbors complain. Are you trying to show me that society, the town, and its residents have suddenly turned racist overnight? No, not overnight. They suffer robberies, they suffer violence, people break into their homes, and so on and so on. Here in Belon, I also went to an illegal immigration center, and overnight. There was a curfew, a kind of curfew, starting at 10 at night. Why? You can't walk around because the streets are theirs, though some do integrate. Well, okay, yes, of course. I'm not going to deny it, but you can't. But regardless of whether they integrate or not, we can't base this immigration model on that. Of bringing them here on purpose and having a whole system with public money to support them. It makes no sense, especially since Spain has Europe's highest youth unemployment rate. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. So as I was saying, it's not only the economic incentive, but also the sexual one. Not only do they get 1,300 euros a month, but also 20 centimeters of dick. And that's how it is. That's how it is. That's how it is.
I'm not making this up. The news is right there. Brutal. Rescue. I completely agree. It's always great doing a show with you. We understand each other and are aligned on almost everything. Any message you want to send to the audience? Well,
above all, I've said this many times and never get tired of repeating it. There's a phrase that completely represents me and my channel, and it's what I try to convey. There's a phrase from Kennedy that says, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country as an individual. I mean, don't expect things to be solved by magic. You have the authority and power
to change it,
and the duty, the obligation to change it. Within your possibilities, exactly. But you have many possibilities because a paradigm shift in your inner forum, in your mind, changes a lot in your environment, in your surroundings. We have more reach because of the topic, numbers and all that, but you have no idea of the reach you can have yourselves with your partner, family, friends. You have immense power. And the worst part, that we can't tolerate a society, which is what scares me and saddens me the most, and it's what I keep seeing all the time. It's a society where people individually censor themselves. A lot of people censor themselves because of what others might say about them, because of being singled out. Oh no, I don't want to be called a fascist for criticizing feminism or a racist. If I talk about how the current immigration model isn't sustainable, not in the short, medium, or long term, speak up, and speak up. Don't censor yourselves. Don't be afraid of what others might say. If someone, your family, your partner, doesn't like something you say, let them respond with a reason, not by pointing fingers and making you out to be the bad guy. Maybe you're not that interested in that person, but the last thing you should do is censor yourself. Because a society that censors itself is self-imposed fascism, and that is real fascism. That's what I'm experiencing now. People who censor themselves, I mean, it's not like the typical current ruler comes to censor people through force, right? No? Society itself, out of shame and fear. Exactly. Society censors itself on its own, out of fear of what others will say, out of fear of being labeled. And that's the most dangerous thing that can happen in a society. If we want a free society, be free. No insecurities or fears. Say what you want. And to do so, always keep your mind nourished by reading, comparing, and confronting ideas. It's not much use to have freedom of speech if you don't have an active mind. So read, inform yourself, soak up information, and along with that, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of what people will say. The one who should be afraid is the one who points the finger at you. Because they have no arguments to defend their ideas, and that's why they need to censor others.
Nothing. Rescue factor super legendary. I have nothing more to add. I've always said it. Each one of you watching us has incredible power. We already have a certain ability to affect the macro environment a bit because of the reach we've achieved. But you have the ability to affect the micro environment, your circle. I want to repeat the reflection I mentioned earlier about fighting the battle at home with love, confronting your partner, confronting your feminist friend. They're not bad people. They're not the enemy. You have to understand that we're fighting against a very well-established, very well-thought-out mental conditioning, against a conditioning that has been developing for decades, against the media, against the newspapers, against the political system, against the educational system. So with a bit of empathy, because I've been in that situation, and maybe you, so when you were younger, have been too. Many of us have gotten out thanks to communicators. Many of us have gotten out thanks to people saying what they think. You can make people change their perspective by confronting, and most importantly, with love. Sometimes you just need to be tactful. Morality isn't subjective. Good is good, bad is bad. Guys, today there is no exclusive community section, but Rescue and I are going to do an exclusive live stream for the community. All right, from Cuba. No, we won't connect from Cuba for community members. Club Red Pill 3.0. Join using the link in the pinned comment if interested. Testorod also has the link in the description. Gentlemen, Adrian, brother, this show has been incredible, honestly. Always bass, passionate, intense, truly you. That's it, gentlemen. See you in the next episode of La Factoria. Until next time.